Hey, what's up guys, FlyBoyTopher here. This is my first tutorial video for Trek Adversaries, hopefully my first of many. I had a lot of fun making this, and I hope that it's well received. Today I'm going to cover Retreat, and let's dive right in. Alright, so some Retreat basics. Retreat is a mechanic that's pretty much unique to Trek Adversaries, and it gets asked about a lot, whether that's in forums, the Discord, new players in person, etc. And that's why I decided to cover it. It's often misunderstood at the beginning, but it can be easy to get the basics down once you get the hang of it. And it allows for some really interesting fights and abilities. Some basic mechanics. In order to retreat a ship, it must have its action available, which means that it must have its attack available, or it must have haste if you want to retreat it as soon as you play it. Upon retreat, you gain energy equal to the cost of the ship, but never over 10. So for example, if you have 2 energy and you retreat a ship that costs 3 to deploy, you'll then be up to 5. However, if you have 8 energy and you retreat a ship that costs 3 to deploy, you'll only go up to 10. You'll never exceed that number. Also, you only get the cost of the ship, not the cost of any crew that's on the ship. Speaking of crew, any crew that's on board will be shuffled back to your deck. That's of course in contrast with any crew that's on a destroyed ship, which also get destroyed unless otherwise specified on the crew card itself. So let's talk about where you can find some retreat effects. You can find them on crew cards like Dr. Pulaski here. So her effects will kick off if she's on a ship and that ship is retreated. In this case, restore 4 hit points to all friendly ships. And so if you have 4 ships out and then you retreat the ship that she's on, you'll restore 4 hit points to the remaining 3 ships. You can find retreat effects on ships themselves, like the Lexington here. In this case, reduce the cost of all cards in your hand by 1. So interestingly enough, these can stack. If you have Dr. Pulaski on the Lexington and you retreat it, you'll get both of those effects. Also of note is that the effects will layer. So if we're talking about retreat effects that do damage, if the ship itself does damage, that'll kick off first as a single attack, if you will, and then it'll go to whatever's in the commander slot and then whatever's in the engineering slot. So this is important because if you have a ship that does damage, like the ablative armor Intrepid that you find in the Intrepid decks, and you put 2 Walker Kim in the commander spot, when you retreat the ship, it'll do that damage first, which will take care of any modulating shields, and then the crew that also causes damage will do it separately. And then you'll also find other examples of effects related to retreat. So like this Intrepid type starship will cause other ships to retreat, and the benefit of that is you can use the ship's action, and then you can play this and cause it to retreat. Or if you have a ship that doesn't have haste, but you have one of these and you want to retreat it as soon as you deploy it, you can play that ship, play this, and then target that ship and retreat it right away. Some other examples include cards that have effects when you retreat other ships, and you may see some of that in the example a little later on. So let's talk about some overall pros and cons. So pros, retreat is extremely interesting and fun. It's my favorite style. As those that know me know that I play Intrepid, although I'm branching out and playing a little bit more Miranda class lately. And the example that I'm going to show you will be using the Excelsior, which is available to you right when you start the game. Oftentimes you have full control over the board. It's known as a control type deck, and that's because you have a lot of deployables and a lot of things a lot of AoEs basically that'll take care of everything on the opponent's side. And late game, you'll rarely run out of energy and auxiliary power. So as you may or may not know, any unused energy at the end of your turn gets converted into auxiliary power, and you also get 5 for each turn. Well, if you're constantly retreating things, I oftentimes end my turns late game with full 10 energy, so I'll be getting 15 auxiliary power each turn. Cons though, it can take a while to come online, especially if you don't get the right card draws, and because of that, it's weak to very aggressive decks, so we're talking like the Constitution, the Refit, or the NX on the Federation side, and a lot of Klingon decks. And while the basic mechanics can be pretty simple to understand, it can be very difficult to master some of these unique strategies that are in play when you play Retreat. Alright, so let's go ahead and switch over to the game. So a few things. As I said, I'm going to go ahead and do an AI match with the Excelsior, which is available to you as soon as you get the game. I'm also going to use the deck that comes with it, the deck that the developers provide you. So this deck 1 is the deck that you will have as soon as you start. Whoops. Let's do that again. Play Cisco. probably not going to play a full match here, but hopefully I'll get some retreat effects, and I'll be able to show you those right away. Intense. Oh, this is kind of a rough start. I'm going to keep Sealar. I normally wouldn't, because I don't normally keep crew at the beginning, but she does have a retreat effect, so that's a good start for me to show you guys what is going on. Alright, so I played this card, and I can't retreat it right away, because it doesn't have its action available and it doesn't have haste. Well, when we get enough energy to play this card, I'll show you what I mean here. See what Cisco does? Excellent, so Cisco also played a retreat effect card. So when Cisco retreats his ship, he'll draw an extra card. So here's the first thing that I told you about retreats. So this ship costs 2 to deploy, right? And I'm currently sitting at 2 energy. Just for the sake of example, I'm going to go ahead and retreat this ship, which I can now do now that it has its action available, and I'm up to 4. And the interesting thing about this, as I talked about some of the pros of retreat, is now I can play a 4-cost card even though I'm only on turn 2. So we can play this haste ship, and if I wanted to, I could retreat it right away because it has its action available, but I don't actually want to do that. Instead I will put Vina here, and we'll take care of that, so he can't retreat that ship and get the benefit from it. Alright, so here's a few other examples I could show you, right? So I'm going to play her on the ship, which, once again, her effect does 1 damage to all enemy ships. And I can go ahead and retreat it since I have the action available. I'll go back up to 4. Notice how I'll only get the cost of the energy to deploy the ship, but none of the crew. And both of those crew members will get shuffled back into my deck. I should have showed you that, but before that, I only had 22 cards in my deck, and after I retreated it, it went up to 24. Those cards got shuffled back into my deck, and I will draw them again. Well, hopefully I'll get to the point where I can draw them again. Just see if I can get a few other examples for you. And we won't play too long. Just kind of wanted to show you what retreat options
target discriminators aligned
were available to me. Alright, so another reason I chose the Excelsior is because it's a perfect example to show you about the retreat mechanic. The special retreats any target friendly ship, and the ultimate retreats any ship. So as I said, something that's awesome about an ability that causes another ship to retreat is I can use this ship's action, and then I can retreat it, so I'll still get all the benefits from retreat and get that attack out. Alright, here, that's an excellent. Got a legendary. Order target friendly ship to retreat and deal damage equal to its attack to the enemy flagship. So it seems like kind of a waste because it's only 1, but I will show it to you as an example. And there you go. So there's some examples of how the retreat system works in the game. And feel free to mess around. I would highly suggest, as I said, because it is kind of complicated, that you go ahead and play against AI when you're first learning how to retreat. Alright, some of my own tips for you guys. So for your deck, you can take the extra crew. There's some excellent crew that offer good retreat options. And you can add, so normally the general guideline is you only want between 6 to 8 or even less crew in a regular deck. I'd say on retreat you can bump that up maybe 1 or 2, just because of the unique effects that you'll get, and also that you'll shuffle those crew members back into your deck. You want a blend of retreat, haste, and guardian. You don't want to focus on all retreat abilities. That's what I did when I first started, and I learned that that wasn't the way to go. You want haste ships that allow you to get those benefits of retreating right away, and you also want some guardians to protect your ships that you want to retreat and you can't right away. and crew stealing cards work wonders. We're talking Kira, the Borg Queen, or Borg Sphere. So what's really awesome is if you use the Borg Sphere to assimilate a ship, and then you retreat that ship, any crew that was on that ship that your opponent owns will then get shuffled back into your deck. So if they have good deploy abilities, that is awesome. This is not permanent, just want to make it clear that that only happens in the game that you're playing right then. And then some gameplay tips. You want to learn to balance the attack and retreat benefits. If you're just constantly retreating, there's only a few abilities that do damage to the enemy ship on retreat, or the enemy flagship on retreat, and you won't ever get them down, right? You won't ever do damage to them. So you have to learn when you should attack and when you should be retreating. You don't want to retreat all the time just because you can. Get that extra energy early, as I showed you. When you retreat early on, you can oftentimes spend higher cost cards pretty easy. If you play a 1 cost ship and then a 2 cost ship on turn 3, you can retreat both of those and you can have up to 6 energy. So you can play something, I just said that right, yes, you can play something that costs 6 on turn 3. And then use your special and your ultimate for cards. As I mentioned before, you'll end up with a ton of extra energy and auxiliary power towards the end. And so just my suggestion is that even if it's not readily apparent that'll benefit you, just go ahead and use your special and your ultimate to get your selection of core cards, so those random 3 core cards, if you need extra cards. Where can you get additional help? Well, luckily in the game, there's links. If you go to the options screen, there's links to both the Reddit and the Discord. This is an amazing community, and people are more than willing to help on both Reddit and Discord. And then there's always DaboTable.com. DaboTable.com is your one-stop shop webpage for everything Star Trek Adversaries, strategy, news, and a lot of fun articles, including hopefully one by me here shortly on Tom Paris, which is an advanced retreat topic, so you might see that out there soon. So I want to thank you guys for hanging out today. If you're seeing this for the first time, go to my Twitch. It's FlyBoyToph, minus the ER, just TOPH. And give me a follow, that would be much appreciated. Literally everything else, including YouTube, on the Discord, in the game, and pretty much any other site that exists on the internet, even not related to Star Trek Adversaries. My screen name is FlyBoyTopher. So I hope you've enjoyed hanging out. I hope you found this video useful. Live long and prosper.